What's up, guys? It's Barrett. Today, I want to talk about one of the most important things that no drum instructor basically talks about, and that is the fact that there's really only two things that you do as a drummer when it comes to technique. Like concept-wise, there's only two main ways that drummers are ever playing at any point in time. And let's talk about that, because it's something, like I said, it's one of the most important things that's never talked about. It's just sort of like almost understood. But why not? Why not talk about it? So what are the two main ways that drummers play? They play even and they play accent tap. They will never play any other way other than those two styles. And this really has to do with concepts and styles. So what do I mean? Well, when you're playing evenly, that means your sticks are at the same stick height. So always, it could be a lower stick height or a higher stick height. And typically stick height is associated with volume and intensity. So the higher the stick height, typically the sort of louder the intensity of the sound. So you can see the lower I drop my stick height, the less volume I get. But that's even playing, right? And so even playing is very, very important from the very beginning, just because it is. I mean, we play evenly when we play fills all the time. Our ear likes to hear that sort of symmetry and that unity of the ideas grouping together, right? Because when you play things evenly, you're really grouping things. That's why when you come to drum lessons with me, one of the first things I show you is basic grooves, and I show you how to play groups around the drums evenly, because groups help us think about the even symmetry that you need when you play around the drums, like twos, threes. Now you're probably thinking, well, Barrett, those have real names. Eighth notes, triplets, sixteenths, yes. But if you go through and tell a student that much information from the very beginning, it's kind of gatekeeping a little bit, because the student's not going to know what you're talking about. Your number one goal as a teacher and student relationship is that you have clear communication and that whatever you're telling the student actually makes sense to them. So if you go ahead and start saying things like eighth notes, quarter notes, sixteenths, and all these subdivisions and these rhythmic ideas that we learn over time, and that's how we do internalize it eventually when we're thinking about rhythms around the drums. The problem is you can introduce it that way. As a teacher, if you can always come from where the student is already at, everyone knows how to count. Everyone knows how to visualize groups because we buy things, money is in groups. We're used to groups. And so it also helps with the concept of evenness, because we can think about how to evenly place our notes in sound, right? And it's also very important as a drummer to just get used to articulating certain groups. Like, you just need to know what 4 feels like and sounds like, right? You need to know what 3 feels like and sounds like. And of course, there's different ways to stick it as well. Okay, with something like 3, you can do right, left, left. There's all kinds of different ways to stick these things. And of course, you can eventually go into bigger groups, like 6 and all that sort of thing. Now, I just cheated right there because I added an accent, which means I technically went into the second style. So the point is, you're always either playing evenly with different stickings, singles, doubles, paradiddles, and you need to know how to play evenly at different dynamic levels, meaning at different volumes and stick heights. See, it's still even. It's still even. But the second style has accents. And since something has accents, that inherently means everything else needs to back off. It's just sound. It's just style. So as soon as I add accents, now I have what are called taps. And another thing that gets confusing in the drumming world is, okay, well, are they called taps or are they called ghost notes? It depends on the context. The reason that debate happens is because we forget about context. In grooves, this is how I teach it. In grooves, we think about them as ghost notes because they're actually functioning as ghost notes. Little bitty notes that sort of fill in and give character to a groove in between the more accent and snare notes. But when I'm just thinking about it around the drums, or more of a rudimental way, or just a technique way of just practicing on a pad or something, right? Then call them taps. But at the end of the day, what they are is they are lower notes that are more controlled, but also relaxed. Controlled because they don't have as much rebound, right? Accents are higher strokes that are sort of faster. And if you do accent tap, the tricky part is you have to stop the stick after you do the accent. So these are examples of accents. And notice how I'm always stopping my stick and leaving it lower to the drum. That's because if I'm in style 2, I have to anticipate that I'm going to be playing a tap. Not always. You can have 2 accents. And if you have 2 accents, then you let it rebound back up, okay? There's always exceptions. But if I have a tap after the accent, which is what happens in this style, because we're still grouping, right? It doesn't matter if I'm doing groups of 3s, right? Triple that, triple that, triple that, triple that. Or just think about it as 3s, because 3s don't have to actually always be triplets. That's a whole other conversation, right? Could be 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and I mean, unfortunately, groups don't have to always be even with their subdivision. That's a whole nother video. But we're talking about technique here. So what's the difference between 3s this way, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 3s this way? The 2 different types of technique, evenness and accent tap, okay? They can both be thought of as 3s, but it's different technique. And so your job as a drummer is to ultimately get really good at both of those, at even playing and accented tap playing. And that's the name of the game, man. Now, there is a little bit of a gray area here because you could say, well, Barrett, isn't accent tap really just 2 different levels of evenness? Because when we accent tap style, we have accents that are the same and we have taps that are the same. And that's actually your goal when you play accent tap, is you want the accents to have the same sort of stick height and sound quality, and you want your taps to have the same stick height and sound quality. In other words, anything that's not an accent is tapped, and all the accents are the same. Does that make sense? The other thing that's really good to practice is crescendos and decrescendos. And so that's kind of a side note. Crescendo, decrescendo. And all of this has to do with dynamic control and stick control. So obviously this is just the beginning of this topic. I mean, you could study this sort of thing, especially the accents in very great detail. And you can also do that with my book, The Essential Drummer. I literally have a page full of just accented ideas that I consider are sort of some of the most important ones. The reason why I wrote this book is because it's a great example of grooves, fills, and technique type things that you want to practice as a drum set player. Like, that's the accent page. So those are some of the most important accent patterns that I like. And you could also think of accented patterns as accent tap, because anytime you have accented patterns, you're going to have lower notes to make up for the fact that you're accenting. Because that's the only way an accent stands out, is if you have taps. They work together, see? So I know this is basically just the beginning of this topic, but I wanted to talk about it because I don't ever hear anyone talking about it. And it's something that's really true. It's something that I figured out the longer I played drums, is that drummers are really only ever playing even, or they're playing with an accent tap type style. Thanks for listening, and hope to see you on the next lesson. Have a good one.